So a few things coming up. I know we have the Santa Anita show next in 2 weeks, right? 2 weeks? 2 weeks. 2 weeks?
It's the last week of the month, the 25th, 26th, and 27th.
Yeah. So Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. No, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. Okay?
Saturday, Sunday, Monday.
Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Okay? And I think that's about it coming up right now. So we had a bunch of shows last month. Okay? Any new members here tonight? Any new people? Any visitors? Okay? I want to thank everybody for coming tonight. Tonight we have Mooney here. He's gone through an apprenticeship in Japan. Was it 5 years?
Yeah, I've been there 5.5 years now, actually.
5.5 years.
5.5 years.
Okay, and he got his bonsai certificate.
Coming soon, actually. I'll get it when I get back to Japan.
Okay.
So technically, I'm not a professional yet.
Okay, so I'm going to turn over here, and so you guys don't have to hear me, and I'll let him tell his story. Thank you very much.
All right,
Okay?
thank you. So like you say, my name is Mooney. I'm originally from Florida in the United States, and I've spent the past 5.5 years studying bonsai at a small little nursery outside of Osaka called Koken. And I have, traditional training more with deciduous, coniferous material, and then I have a decent background working with tropicals from my time in Florida as well. So looking forward to, meeting everyone and going around the room, help you figure out what to do with your trees. On a side note, I brought a bunch of pots with me from Japan, so feel free to take a look. If they don't have what you're looking for, it's probably because Bob Pressler bought it the first day.
He bought 2 pots.
He bought 2 pots, but they were the best 2 pots, to be fair. So, So take it up with him if it's not there. And I guess let's go around the room and get started.
Okay.
So, should I just start on the
Wherever
side?
wherever you like.
I'm going to go around the back side of the room, actually, because if I'm working with you on your tree, I want you to see what I'm seeing at the same time.
Okay.
So, if you're seeing the back side while I'm looking at the front, I don't really think that helps too much. Okay, so we got a black pine right here.
Yes.
So I'd say the front would be probably somewhere in this area, kind of at a diagonal. Should I turn it around to the camera a little bit every once in a while too?
You can. Perfect.
Okay. I'd say, yeah, kind of somewhere around here. That's probably like the nicest trunk line and angle in my mind. I'd say the best thing to do with this would probably be putting some scion grafts on it. These branches are pretty thick and a lot of the foliage is out kind of far. Right. So if you were to do, some of these branches might be kind of usable, but they're pretty weak. So if I were you, I would probably let it grow out for the year, and then maybe kind of late winter, early springtime, you could do some grafting on it. So I would graft kind of in the side areas of these branches. So maybe one here on the opposite, one here, one there. Kind of just treat every branch like that. So, you have this branch here and it's kind of got the same problem. So you could do some grafts kind of in all those areas, and maybe this branch in the future, you don't need it. So you probably don't need to put a graft on that one, but this, you've got some foliage here. So as long as that stays healthy and doesn't die off, you could use that in the design. And then for the most part, just put as many grafts as possible. I think it would be nice to try and compact it into a shohin eventually. So, put grafts on those first 2 branches here, and the same idea. One kind of try on the outside of the bend on the sides so it's easier to use. You got these in here, which I would fertilize the heck out of this and try and make sure it gets nice and healthy. And also maybe put some grafts like into these areas in the trunk so you can kind of regrow it from that. And then sadly, just a lot of waiting after that. In the meantime, just give it a lot of love, fertilizer, and a decent amount of water as well, and just kind of get it healthy for the grafting, basically.
All right.
That would be. But yeah, I'd say for the front, somewhere around here.
So you're saying it's basically terrible.
No, I'm saying it has potential, but yeah, bonsai takes a long time. Black pines, a good black pine was not built in a day, so basically a lot of grafts and kind of trying to compact that tree and make like a shohin out of it. That would be my advice for it.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Do you have any questions or anything?
No.
Okay, all right.
Start grafting.
Start grafting right now. Where's your grafting knife? It's bad timing, but where's your grafting knife? All right, what do we have here? This was the tree you had at the IET show, right? Cool. Okay, so I think we talked. Oh, don't hit me in the face now. I think we talked about this a little bit. So one thing that kind of bothers me about this tree is, you know, you have this kind of long line that's parallel with the ground basically, and then it's kind of parallel with the trunk as well. So that kind of bothers me. So I'd like to find a way to manage that and make it a little kind of more aesthetically pleasing line. And if you can't do that, basically just eliminate it. So I think one thing you could do, I think we talked at the show, you could cut it off, you could grow this a bit taller and kind of make more of, you know, like a Bong-jeene-esque tree out of it, and giving it that height would kind of make this not a necessary branch in the design, the way I see it at least. The other option would be perhaps changing the angle slightly. Maybe you could kind of lift it up a little bit and then kind of in the future grow, you know, you could even guy wire this a little bit down into here and kind of compact the apex a little bit more towards the right, eventually kind of growing this out and shortening that to kind of bring the flow that way. So that would be the two options I'd say as far as growing it. Other than that, I'd like to add some Deadwood into the trunk. One nice thing about junipers, or one thing that you should try and bring out with junipers, is the Deadwood. Everyone likes the Deadwood on collected trees, and you know, it doesn't have to be a collected tree to have nice Deadwood, thankfully. So I would start with, you know, you have these kind of gins that were made probably a pretty long time ago. So you could widen these up a little bit, kind of like you see how on the back you've got like nice Deadwood there. So just the best thing you can do with junipers is not make it all at once, but just kind of make it little by little. And as it heals over, you'll start to get these little ridges, and it creates that kind of nice, you know, texture that basically makes it look much older. So you could kind of widen this out and create kind of, you know, kind of eye shape almost, kind of how this one has right here, but extend it into this area and kind of widen that, not so much here, but just kind of widen that channel. So you have like a nice line of shoddy that you could basically over time follow up the trunk and maybe even connect with this one. So that would be, you have any questions?
Oh,
Sure.
No, go ahead.
No, it's fine.
You said because these were pointing straight up.
Yeah.
You said don't do that. So I kind of tried to flatten them down.
I would probably cut this out. I think you could, you know, it depends if you're going to try and grow it out or if you're going to try and kind of compact it. If you were going to want to compact it, you have this nice growth around here that's a little bit more compact within the design. So you could either, you have a few options. You could let this grow out, make a gin out of it and kill it in the future. So you kind of have some interest in the top of the tree. Or if you didn't really want a gin, you could just cut that out, leave a little stub, and then you could wire these two branches and basically kind of fan those out to make the apex. And that would give it a little bit more of a rounded dome to it. So that would look a little bit more mature. And it would also just kind of help compact the design a bit. So,
But if I was going to try to make it taller, like you.
yeah, if you were trying to make it taller, just grow it out, basically. So yeah, that would be my advice for this. Do you have any questions?
Well, if it was your tree, you'd cut that.
I'd probably think about it for at least a couple weeks before I did it. I don't you know, during my time in Japan, I've seen like a lot of branches that have gotten cut, and sometimes those branches have taken 2 years of discussion to get cut off. So you can always cut it off at a later date, but you can't really put it back.
Okay.
Gin doesn't really turn into live foliage very easily, or at least I haven't seen it during my lifetime. So
Okay.
yeah, I'd think about it for a bit. Yeah, you could use it if you wanted to, but it's more not so much the branch that bothers me, but the angle that it comes out. You usually don't want these kind of flat parallel lines with the ground. At least in this case, you don't want to focus on it because for me it's a cool mature tree, but the first thing I look at is boom, that branch, and then I can't really appreciate the rest of the tree because of that. So you can do many things, either hide it, change the angle, you know, cut it off, not cut it off, but make a gin out of it. So I'd think about it for a while, basically.
Okay. Thanks, Kyle.
Sure. All right. What do we got here? Another black pine?
Yeah.
Is this like a cork bark bark?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
But then we had a windstorm like 3 months ago,
Oh,
so
no.
this branch broke. So that was going to be my front.
This was going to be your front?
This is going to be my front, and I had nice growth here with new buds, but
I see.
it cracked.
Well, you know, you got these here. That's,
Yeah.
So that, if you still want to use this as your front, I mean, if you still wanted to use this side as your front, I think I'd probably change the angle a little bit. I think it'd look kind of cool if you stand it up like that. You got this kind of leading branch that way. and it would kind of bring the flow a little bit more that way. The hard part with that is, you know, this branch kind of goes straight up.
Right.
But when you're talking with these, like the cork bark pines or Nishikimatsu, they don't really tend to follow like the kind of traditional pine dynamic. They're just a little bit more unorthodox. So I think, you know, some stuff you're just gonna kind of have to say it is what it is and just kind of work with it. I mean, you could graft into here and, you know, correct that angle if you really wanted to. But I think if you were to kind of stand it up like that, another nice thing is you can see the base is a little bit thinner than it is here. When you stand it up, like visually, it kind of tricks your mind into thinking that it's around the same size, more or less. So you could do that and basically use this branch as kind of like a leading line. Bring these branches down a little bit into here and, you know, cut that because it's probably not going to come back to life. And swing that around a little bit. And then basically that would kind of, you know,
Takes the place.
takes the place. And then these guys just kind of, they're a little unhealthy, so maybe don't do it now, but just kind of drop these down into that range. So you got this coming to the front, and then basically those will be kind of above that, and the whole thing, you know, kind of look for that kind of rounded triangular shape, and then flow it that way. I think that would be my advice for it. So for everyone looking, doesn't really pick up on the camera so well, but something like that. That's what I would probably do with it. If you want to make a tree, you know, kind of appreciate it for what it is and make something nice in like a somewhat shorter time range. So that's what I would do probably.
Only question I had, so I got, about last year, I got really good back buds all in here.
Yeah, I can see you got
And
some
I didn't get
crosses.
anything down here. So is it just a matter of not fertilizing enough? Or just
It can just be a matter of, you know, typically speaking, the top half of the tree is going to be younger than the bottom half of the tree. So you're going to have a lot more sap flow and just energy being transported into that part of the tree. So you'll tend to see more back budding.
I may not see anything else.
You might not. Usually in this kind of, you might get lucky, but frankly in these areas, this kind of back budding even is kind of unnormal to some degree. It's much more common in the top of the tree, but I think you're less likely to see it. Once you start getting that bark in there, it's pretty unlikely. So I wouldn't worry about that. The tree looks fairly healthy.
It was healthy
I'd
till
say-
it dropped because it was, so I was traveling, so it was bare rooted, open exposed for like 2 days.
Oh, I see.
So it took a big
I'd
hit.
probably take a little bit of the soil off. It looks like it's kind of mounted up. I think you could probably
Yeah,
brush some of that
okay.
off. Yeah. Just make sure when you're covering those surface roots, that's usually not too good of a thing to do. So I would, you know, brush off a little bit of the soil on that. Not a little bit, just a little bit, really.
Yeah,
And
I just
then-
thought it because I was worried. So I used to walk a dom on it.
Yeah, I gotcha. And sometimes these you can't, not defoliate, you can't decandle these as strong as you typically would with regular black pine. They're a little too weak, so sometimes you'll do it every other year. Sometimes you won't do it at all, depending if it's weak. This to me looks like maybe a combination of water and or fungus. I wouldn't say spider mites because, you know, a lot of the new growth is pretty nice.
No, there was fungus. I got fungus last year, so I treated it with Mancozeb and Doc and still just
Just the rotation.
Just the rotation.
Yeah. That's usually pretty good to fix most issues. If you're really worried about it, you know, you can send it off to a lab. There's a lot of good places in California. I'm sure one of the other club members could probably put you.
Yeah, I know. I had Julian look at it. So
Okay,
that's why
cool. Yeah.
We were okay with it. There wasn't any bad fungus.
Yeah, you know, and you don't see anything in the new needles, which is a good sign. These are going to get pulled off in the fall, so it's not.
Because I freaked out the first time I saw it. He looked at it and he said, "Oh no, you're okay."
It's not. It's a little unhealthy in the old needles, but nothing to worry about.
Okay.
Cool. Any other questions? No. All right, great. Wait, so what do we have next? Hello. This is. Okay, it's a feminine, right. I thought it was a Juniper on the way out, actually. Where's the front of this? The other side? Okay. I probably wouldn't. I think, you know, when you have like a tall, slender tree like this, I might change some things about it, or maybe thin out some branches in this area, perhaps. But I think, I think when you have like a kind of tall, slender tree like this, we want to put emphasis on that. And one way to do that is kind of having those nice drop branches. When you take those away, the proportions get kind of almost too regular, if that makes sense. It kind of looks like every other tree, but when you have something like tall and slender like this, you really want to put emphasis on that. So I probably wouldn't take this away. I would probably keep that. I think you could wire it out more, a little bit more into. I know the branch will needs to be kind of brittle, so I don't want to move around too much right now. But I think you could probably take it and kind of move it more into this area. And as far as like the branch, well, maybe in here eventually remove one of these. So you got like 3 coming out of the same spot, so that's kind of a little bit too much. I probably. I mean, think about perhaps removing this one here. Yeah, this one. Yeah. And then that would kind of make sure you don't. Otherwise, it's going to get kind of knobby in here in the future. As far as that, it's a pretty cool tree. I think I might want to. Have you done like the first pruning this season kind of recently on this?
Nipping.
Okay, like just pinching it?
Yes.
I wouldn't do that. I'd let it like flush out at least once. So this isn't like a needle for the whole year. Not for the whole year, but at least like. So this is not like a needle juniper in the sense of like a tosho like we have in Japan. But I know in LA a lot of people kind of treat them like that. So I would probably let it flush out once and maybe around. So you just been kind of like pinching it constantly? I see. So I would let it flush out, at least like for this area, let it grow out to here at least once, if not a little bit more, and then around kind of mid-May, you could try this next year, for example. It depends on when your growing season ends, where you are. You might be able to get away with it now, but I'd let it build up strength that way, and then you can go through and prune it with scissors. So basically what you do is, and between all of these little needles and leaves, you prune it back into that area so you don't get leaf browning. And I think if you were to do that, the tree would fill out a lot more. So you kind of have all the branching just kind of on these tips. And what you really want to have is some nice kind of volume to it. So I think if you try and do it 1 year, that method, you'll get some of that nice volume and it'll fill out.
That's what I was hoping to do, that it would pinch it back and it would grow more properly.
So the best thing you can do is you want to let it grow out a little bit. And then, it'll take all that energy reserve that it had from growing out, and once you prune it, that'll really fill it out. If you're constantly, pinching at it, it's going to be kind of counterintuitive, and you're not really going to get the results. So I think if you try that, it's a cool tree. I think I'd like to see it in a smaller pot, personally, in the future. Yeah. I think you could have maybe a round or something, maybe kind of in the neighborhood of this size, non-bun pot could work. That would definitely put emphasis on the trunk. Like I was saying again, it's a really slender trunk, and when you put it in a big pot like this, that can kind of overpower the trunk almost. So if you put it in a smaller pot, it would put emphasis on that and really kind of make it the main power star of the show.
It's too knobby right here. I think about getting rid of some branch.
This one in the back here? I think you would be good with reducing it a little bit. The same thing you got is that one I was showing you down there. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, and if you got this junction, it's not from the same point, but it's going to be making that kind of bulbous and kind of grotesque in the future, reducing it a little bit. So I think this one's pretty strong here, and if you notice, it's also kind of growing out further than this one, so it's shading that out and making that weaker. Yeah, I'd remove that one. And then maybe in the future, this one as well. But you could do that in kind of 2 stages. Make a gin out of this, remove this one now, and then once this starts to fill out and you can fill out that area a bit more, you can remove that and kind of swing it over a little bit. Move this whole. Yeah, I'd make a gin out of it, maybe cut it for this area. But you don't have to cut both these at the same time. You can wait till this fills out a little bit, cut this for now. And then usually that kind of 2-step process, depending on the tree I prefer. So it's not going to be too empty all from one step.
Is this too bulky here to get rid of these gems here?
I don't think so personally. I think in the future, if you let it grow out, like I was saying, and then prune it 1 or 2 times after it flushes out a bit instead of just pinching it, this will kind of fill out, so you won't even really be drawn to those areas as much. Now I wouldn't say an eyesore, I think it's kind of interesting personally, it works for this, but if you were to let this kind of fill out a bit, yeah, but like I was saying, as it fills out, it won't really be that much of an issue. You could guy wire this down a little bit, and then let that fill out. You won't, you know, now since it's kind of very airy, the first thing your eye goes to, since that's the middle of the tree and there's so much negative space here and here and here, is that area in between all of that negative space. So if you move things around a little bit and let it fill out, you won't really do that in the future when you look at it. Yeah, I think you could definitely go through and thin stuff out a little bit, but I wouldn't say too much branching, frankly. It just needs to be thinned out a little bit more. Those areas, look for areas where you have like lots of clusters like that, and try and talk to yourself and think like which one's stronger, which one's not, which one's causing problems, which one's not working for the tree. So this one's obviously shading that out, which is not a good thing. It's sticking out further than that, which is not a good thing aesthetically. So remove that. And if you go around the rest of the tree, you know, you have another area like this. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4 branches. Maybe just 3. I don't know if I even count that one. But you got quite a few branches growing out at the same spot. So think again, which of these branches is causing a problem, which of them is not causing a problem. See this one again, it's kind of sticking out of the silhouette. So you could remove that one if you wanted to. But you also could remove this one if you wanted to and shift that into place. Personally, I would remove this one because it's coming from the middle right there. It's the strongest of them. And you also got this nice growth right here, which is going to take fill up that space quite quickly. So it's not going to miss. You're not going to miss much. So remove that, and then just kind of continue to go around the tree and think with that mannerism of where do I have like 3 or more branches, 2 or more than 2 branches, and basically try and thin those areas out. Yeah, that's the one we were talking about. Like even, where was it, here, you got these guys here. This could be cut out in the middle, and then you could bring those down into there. So doing that would kind of simplify the structure a little bit, make it a little bit cleaner, and just kind of basically do some light on that.
Should I require these branches down to be more horizontal?
I think at this stage with the tree, a lot of stuff could be done with just kind of pruning and guy wires. You can use some wire here and there, but I wouldn't wire like the whole tree. I think it kind of has like a nice structure for the most part. It mainly just needs some things to be fixed here and there, which would be kind of more supplemental wiring.
There's a lot coming out.
Yeah, in this area it doesn't really bother me too much. Not as much as those other areas. I think if you were to move any of these branches, it would create quite a bald spot, which I don't really like. In the future, you can definitely think about it, but for the time being, I think I'd wait till other areas fill out and you have But that would be my advice. Mainly just let it flush out and try that kind of different pruning technique. I think you'd get like nice results.
I was thinking I had too much of the top.
Too fat? You could definitely prune it in a little bit harder, but I think like aesthetically it looks fine. You might want to just prune it in harder when it grows out, so kind of balance that growth and keep it at that size.
You're not bothering me.
Yeah.
You're not bothering me.
Excuse me.
Yes. Yeah.
Would you consider this more
A little louder, Lindsay. I'm sorry, a little louder.
As far as like the structure, yeah, I would say so. I would consider. That's why I was kind of recommending him to put it into a, smaller round pot like a non-bomb. Frankly, I think you could put it into a pot that size. Maybe a little bigger than that. That might be a little bit stretching it, but I would rather put it in something smaller than that. So that would be my advice. Yeah, and basically, I think in Japan we kind of call it not like a Bong-jeene, but kind of Bong-jeene-esque. It's of that nature, and I would definitely try to treat it more like that than you were trying to design like a typical kind of left, right, back branch sort of tree. It does kind of have that structure, but since it is like an older tree, I don't really want to disturb that too much. I think it's cool personally. I think it is a pretty nice tree now, but I think you could take a few extra steps and really bump it up and make it into a fantastic tree.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Hello. What do we have here? Black pine?
I repotted it.
It used to be. Oh no. All right.
So my questions are what to do with this.
What to do with that? Have you tried grafting? I'm kidding. Yeah, so I guess you'd make a gin. The question is, how big of a gin would you make? For the time being, I would probably just gin it all, and like I was telling a few other members with the trees, just kind of wait and think about it. You know, and then that leaves you this, of course. If you wanted to use this, frankly, in the future, if I were making a tree out of this, I would probably cut it back to pretty small.
Okay.
Like, I think for me, I would cut it back into here.
Okay.
But maybe for now, just strip off the bark, look at it for a while, let it grow for a season, put some wire on it once it gets healthy. Not this season, considering this died back this year. Okay, yeah, I'd let it grow out for the season. Probably can't decandle it this year. There's not really too much needle to cut back to, but yeah, just take the bark off, gin it, and kind of look at it for a while and just see how you think. But if it were my tree, I would probably cut it back to a small portion. I think it would kind of, you know, this being the larger trunk, would probably take away from that. It's a shame the trunk died. It's a pretty cool tree. If it was still alive, I'd probably change the angle, maybe do something like that, and then kind of have this branch, I'd put some raffia or tape, whatever you use, kind of drop this branch down really kind of dramatically and kind of almost follow that trunk line down into here, have a branch there, and then you have this kind of as like the parent tree that's kind of watching over that one, and I would follow that trunk line. I think that'd be kind of cool, you know, if it was alive. You could always, you know, put a seedling or something in there. That might be an interesting option if you were to make a little gin out of that and have something that kind of goes up and follow that trunk line. Yeah, this is definitely the front on this side. That would be my opinion. Cool. Yeah. So I just gin it for now and think about it for a while and see what you think. But in the future, probably cutting it short.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Hey, Kai, there's no, so why not have that as like a main gin, like a main dead branch? Or tree, technically.
So like when I was in Japan, like making deadwood on trees, I remember I was making one and my teacher said like, it's not bad, but it doesn't look like deadwood. It looks like a branch died and you just kind of left it there. So I think you're trying to, it's difficult because obviously bonsai is like a man-made art, of course, but you're trying to kind of mimic nature in the sense of like, you don't want to collect like a juniper from the mountains that looks like it has deadwood that died like a week ago, right? You want something that looks like it died 1,000 years ago. So if you have just this kind of young wood on a tree that's much bigger than the one to the left of it, it's pretty quick to kind of take your assumptions and think like, oh, this died not too long ago. So I would try to not put emphasis on that, basically. So in that case, yeah, you could, definitely.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, make it look like a tree that survived the forest fire.
Yeah, so there's some options, but I, you know, yeah, one of those.
So de-emphasizing the large dead branch, basically.
Probably, since the tree is, you know, the live living part is a little bit smaller than that, I think it's a little bit grotesque to keep that bigger than it.
Okay.
If you were to maybe put another seedling in there and grow that taller than this eventually, maybe you could use that into the design. But again, that's why I said take the bark off, look at it for a while. Don't cut it down to a nib right away.
Okay.
But if that tree were in Japan and it was getting worked on, I think we'd probably just cut that away and make it not the emphasis as well at all. Because something like this in Japan, basically, it would come into the garden for maybe a customer or something that was getting rid of their trees, and it would go to the very next auction because we don't want anything to do with it really. And if you're doing that, so no one's gonna want to buy it if they think that it's an unhealthy tree. So that's kind of where my mindset is coming from, basically. You want to take emphasis away from the fact that this part died and just make it look like it was purposeful, basically. So, yes.
Smaller pot in the future?
I wouldn't do anything to it right now. As far as a smaller pot, yeah, you could go like a hair smaller, but nothing too crazy. Like maybe just take off like I don't know, 1/2 an inch or 1/4 of an inch around the diameter of it. Yeah.
Sell it to me, man.
All the dishes. Whose tree is this? This is yours? Hi, how you doing? Good. So this is, what type of juniper, do you know?
Femina.
Okay, oh, the Femina? All right. So as far as the front on this tree goes,
Yeah, line factor. That's okay. They're good.
I think I would maybe probably pick, yeah, thank you. Pick something out and here, you kind of have, you want to look for something where there's not too many branches, you know, going right towards you, and have the tree kind of leaning towards you just a little bit. So if you look at it from the side, you can see it's kind of leaning towards you a little bit. And yeah, I picked that, something like that for the front. And I think I'd probably let it grow out a little bit more. It's a little bit unhealthy. So maybe just when you get back home, put some fertilizer on it, like some organic fertilizer if you have it, and just try and pump it up full of health and get it really healthy. And other than that, I wouldn't do too much for it now. Like seeing the kind of dead branches and stuff, I think it's probably a little bit on the unhealthy side. So mainly just kind of focus on the health and vigor of the tree first.
What would be the NPK fertilizer you'd say?
Usually pretty low. Like I wouldn't have any of them go over 10 basically. Anything under that should be okay. Anything that they're selling, like if you have any local bonsai nurseries, usually they have like the kind of oil cakes basically. It's like an organic mixture, looks like little pellets like that. Whatever they have locally should probably be okay, like some sort of Japanese brand, or if they're making it homemade, something like that would be okay. I'd stay away from the synthetic ones or the chemical ones. Not in every case, but particularly in this one, since it is a little weak, sometimes if you put something like that on, it can kind of shock the tree, and that can cause the foliage to die off or die back, and that would not give you the result. So kind of low strength fertilizer, something organic, and just whatever they're selling at like local bonsai nursery should probably be the trick around here. Yeah, sure, of course. Hey, how you doing?
I am struggling to decide
Okay.
my foliage pads. So I got a lot of branching. I purposely let a lot of things not go uncut on purpose,
Gotcha.
so that I would have options.
What kind of juniper is this?
I think it's a Prostrata.
Okay.
I'm correct. But I've had it for at least 4 years now. I've hacked it, put it back, multiple times, just trying to get the overall shape. Of course, I know I need to clean this up, but I have a lot of problem areas, like back here. See, it's way thick of a branch, so I don't know if that eventually will become a gin. Because I really just started cutting things that I knew just weren't part of the design. But even deciding my first branch, even start foliage pads, that's like a stumps. Stumps me honestly. Because see, I even got rid of this. I got like 3 different options just in this little section down here alone.
So one thing I've noticed this in LA, at least, a lot of these kinds of junipers, people will kind of treat them a little bit differently and grow them more for the needles. But if you let this tree grow out, it will get mature foliage. So I know that might not be.
I do in some sections, of course, as you can tell.
So that might not be the answer you're looking for exactly, but part of the reason the foliage on this is so difficult to manage is because this juvenile growth is typically a sign of basically the tree being stressed out. So if you were to let it put on this mature foliage growth, which would take time, it could take a couple years till it puts that all on. But you can see even right here in the tips, that growth is a lot easier to manage. So since it is kind of stressed out and it's putting out like a lot of this juvenile growth, which I know some people train it like that on purpose, which is okay, it's going to tend to make a lot of foliage because the tree is thinking, oh shit, I need to make more foliage, so something bad is happening.
I don't want it to get too darkened out, but there's so much foliage that it'll all go unhealthy.
So that would be an option if you wanted to let it kind of grow out until you start seeing this and thinning out the needles. You could get more manageable growth. That you wouldn't want to be pinching it or picking at the tips, of course, or something like that.
I think all the way to the base, things that are way too overcrowded kind of sections.
Just kind of look at what options it has. It's got a cool trunk line, definitely, that's for sure. Okay. I'd probably, one thing for like, this is, not exactly on the branches, but I'd probably raise it up a bit.
Yes.
So typically, when you're picking out the front of the tree, everyone wants to look at the front of the tree because it's the front of the tree, right? But you should look at the side of the tree a lot too. You don't want it to be leaning back. You don't want it to be perfectly straight. You don't want it to be leaning too much forward. This one I think is leaning a little bit too much to the back. Let's say this is kind of your apical region. I'd want that a little bit more at the top of the tree. So I'd lean that forward just a bit, not too much, something maybe in that region. This might even be too much, something around there. As far as the management of the foliage,
It's way dense, and to be honest, I let it go for about a year. I'm a new father, and taking care of the kid more than actually the trees. Watering, for sure, watering as much as I can, but I haven't really had the time to just go out and design or even think about it,
So, general rule is you want to prune the, overly strong stuff kind of going anywhere, if you're talking about the refined areas. Not so much from the tips always, but where it emerges from. This, like, let's say, for example, this branch is strong, but that doesn't mean you want to cut it back here. If you're not going to use it, you want to cut it back into this area. So that would be one thing you could do, is kind of remove some of that strong stuff coming upward, and just
learning this double section here, like what would actually, should I choose to be my first branch? I can start actually wearing it out, padding it out.
It doesn't have to be one or the other so much. Yeah, it's fine to keep two in that case. This is kind of more filling out the back anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's see. You could cut this one back, cut it out actually. You can make a gin out of it and kind of let
that
this
part
stuff
take
if
over.
you wanted to, but I think you could definitely use both if you want to. That really is dense in there.
Yeah, I know.
You could definitely thin this out quite a bit in certain areas. I think here you could cut this branch out.
Back out there?
You could cut this back, so you got this nice kind of finer branching. So I wouldn't cut it out completely. Maybe make like a small gin, something around that area, and you could use that growth. So that would help with kind of thinning it out quite a bit. And look for those finer branching, and basically cutting out that I think would make it a lot easier to figure out what's going on. I wouldn't even keep this because there's so much branching in there. So cut out that whole thing, make a small gin out of it, fan those out, and that would help you out for the first branch. As far as the rest of the stuff, I would probably, let's see.
I gotta get those foliage pads started now, so it's healthy for this growth season.
I think you can cut this out too, and then wire this stuff down. But don't pinch this back or anything, let it grow out for a bit, one so it sets, and just so you can kind of promote branching in the sides as well. And then kind of thin stuff out. You do want to keep some back buds just so you have stuff to cut back to in the future, but with these kinds of junipers, they do back bud too much sometimes.
This was all cleaned up in the a while back.
As far as this area, if you were to use that as the...
Should this actually go out then, because I think that was just left it as an option more than anything.
No, I would use it, but I would put a bunch of raffia on it. Start from the back around the trunk, and you want to really make sure you get like a crotch. So go around quite a couple times, going over the top and going over the bottom. And I would try and kind of bring it out more into this area. So you're not looking at that. Definitely use it. It's a good branch.
It's like an arm to hug you.
Yeah, basically, what you're kind of trying to do with that branch is you're kind of trying to close off the design. So you're kind of trying to bring the focus of the movement this way. So if you have something that's too long and too open on that side, your brain's kind of thinking like which side is the flow of the tree going to. So you want to bring that, I don't want to do it right now because it could crack once you get raffia and stuff on it. Bring it over and kind of close off the design and bring it this way. As far as the branching in the top, this thing is really dense in here. Yeah, you can thin out a lot of stuff. I wouldn't even...
I hack it back twice a year, and this is all it goes.
But really go through and, remove stuff from the crotches. Do typical cut back to 2 on everything for the most part. And up here, let's see what we got. This branch, you could use that. So definitely thin the majority of this stuff. Just keep like a couple for back budding.
Yeah.
Keep this kind of stuff. This is good to use here. So you want to use that. Take off some stuff from the underside and wire that out. Let it grow out to fill in that area. And that'll help make your kind of branching on top of that. And then just thin the majority of this stuff out in here. Just leave like 1 or 2 so you have those branches to cut back to if you need them, but you don't need all of them.
No, I know I will not.
Yeah. So don't be too scared. This is a good tree. Like even if you do make a mistake,
it's very forgiving.
It's not going to be a bad mistake. So it's a good tree for that. To kind of practice those things on. In here,
I think I cut that out.
Yeah, I'd say this is pretty strong, and just kind of regrow from this nice growth here, and let those grow out. Like once you do cut it back, wire them out into shape, and let them kind of grow out for the year, and then in fall you can go and you can cut them back then. That'll kind of help force like kind of softer growth, and you won't have those kind of knobby bits. It's not too bad. I think you could probably use this branch, again, maybe wrap it up with some raffia. You could probably wrap these 2 together even if you wanted to. And then, or wire them together, don't wrap them together. Wrap them separately, because you don't need to going around the whole trunk. And then you can kind of wire that down, out, here.
That's awkward.
Yeah, I'd get rid of this one, make a little gin out of it, cut into that area.
So I put that gin on this one crazy, because that part's awkward too.
So you got some nice branching under here that you can use, and you have all these buds. typically when you're designing like juniper, something like this at least, you kind of want to use those like parallel branches, not stuff that's going straight up and then down and back out. It's kind of awkward.
So join that sucker out.
Yeah, and then use this kind of nice branching coming out from the side to remake the tree. And then the apex, let's see. If you're gonna stand it up, you do want to compact it a little bit. So I'd probably, again, cut out, make a gin out of this. You could even, one thing you could do is kind of grow it out, and then you could, you know, make a gin out of that in the future. And with that, you could put some of these down and kind of create some movement and interest in the gin. So that would kind of also help bring the flow that way. So cut that out, and then use some of this finer growth to make that kind of like domed apex out of it. So
Thank you.
I think that's a good start for that.
I got a lot of work on it.
Get to it. Hi, Peter. How you doing?
Hey, what's happening, man? 11.5 years went quick.
It did. No, it went quick for you, I guess.
I actually have two front.
Okay.
First, I started here, looking, then I went around the other side.
Uh-huh.
Much better, more lighter.
Yeah, you could definitely make it out of both sides. I think for me, I probably prefer this side. I think this would be easiest to use in like a box display. You know, black pine being at the top, kind of, I would probably, even though you kind of have some first branches on that side, I would probably think about, a lot of times when we would style like Shohin Japanese black pine in Japan, it's kind of a situation where if you guy wire one branch, you need to guy wire all of them because you need to match those angles. So I would probably think about, you know, you could do some guy wires even from the bottom of the pot. If you've seen them, they'll make the little kind of loop and then go in this way and then fold up, and the basically the tension from this part of the pot and this part of the pot will be enough to guy wire smaller branches down. So I'd really try and get stuff like kind of low, like almost that angle, something like that. For everyone else to see, and basically, you know, you get that there, so that means the next one needs to be above that, and I think that would really compact it and get it much tighter and a little bit smaller, which is what you would want for like a nice Shohin tree. And maybe in this area, you got like a lot of branches coming out of here, so I think you could cut back the longest ones. So these, I don't think you really need that. If you were going to use this side, of course, you know. So you could do that, and that would kind of help push the flow that way. So remove those, and then basically just make sure you get these angles down quite a bit, and then you could probably compact this to a much smaller size doing that. It's tricky work. Like I remember the first one I did, I looked at like the senior apprentice was there at the time, and I was like, I wired down all the bottom branches, what do I do now? And he was like, you do the same thing, but to every other branch. And it was kind of tough work the first time I did it, but I would follow that pattern. I think that would make a really cool tree. It's a nice little black pine. Where'd this come from? Did you grow it? Or
Low pine garden.
oh, okay. I know. Yeah.
And it came
In a big
in a
bucket.
big box.
Yeah.
And I go, so what are you gonna do with it? Show him. I goes, you're crazy.
Looks like it's working.
But
Yeah, I would definitely. This would be my preferred front on this side. I think with this side, for me, the flow is kind of difficult. I prefer this side personally as the front. I think this would be the nicer kind of, for my personal taste at least. I think this would be the wise choice to make a tree out of. But it's a nice tree, definitely.
And I'm also thinking about skipping the candle this year.
Yeah, I mean,
They're a little bit weak.
you know, what you could do is just like partial, like look in here, like this is kind of strong, this is kind of strong. This is kind of interesting growth here. Maybe, you know, this you might even be able to just cut back into those buds and fall, like in there, and not handle it, because it's kind of, it looks like kind of growth that came out maybe like late last year.
Yes.
And
I think it was.
yeah. So maybe some of these, like just in the apical region, like this kind of stuff, it's hard to say now as far as how strong it's going to be. I've had a couple trees where like at the nursery that I studied at that we thought we weren't going to decandle. And we usually do our decandling in June in most places in Japan, and then it comes around time to decandle, and it's like a week after you did everything else, and you're like, oh damn, that tree's way too strong, you need to do something, so it's tricky with that. But I would probably decandle maybe around 20% of the stronger stuff, but probably not the whole tree. Like this area, definitely. I think if you decandle this, you might lose that branch, which is a very important branch, definitely. So I think maybe this branch in the future, think about removing some of that stuff from the top there and just using like these two branches. Let's see, what would that do? So that would remove quite a bit, but I think you could regrow that from these guys above it. If you were to compact things down, that might actually help you out. Like it fills in a lot of space now, but if you were to really throw everything downwards, that space might become kind of useful to use, or to put the branches above it into that area.
And it gets shorter.
Yes, exactly. So that's, those are the two things we're always trying to do with Shokin, is shorten and compact branching on the sides of it. So it's a cool tree though.
Kaya,
Yes.
do you just have to keep bringing the branches down?
Like while you're wiring it, or just in general?
Well, you said to guy wire it down.
Yeah.
But I'm sure at some point it was pointing down, right?
Yeah, probably. But the hard part is, you know, maybe if you were to wire this whole tree and you're just using like the finer wiring, you can bring these parts of the branching down, but you're not really bringing this part of the branching down here, like this kind of thicker section. So the guy wire, I wouldn't guy wire out here, but in here, and basically that would really bring that angle to branch down, and that would help set it. So you do that, and basically that would kind of help bring the flow to this side, because if you're pushing the flow that way on the tree, you want to have this side a little bit lower. And then I was saying, you know, you could cut back some of these branches over here and then kind of push the flow to that side again, kind of closing off that side of the tree to push it that way. And yeah, of course you might have to do the same exact thing kind of down the road, but that's part of just kind of what shohin is when you're doing these kind of trees. But if you do that nice guy wire down, that will help it in the future, where you can maybe get away with 3-4 years down the road not having to do that again, and just wiring with smaller wire on the finer branching, basically. Cool tree.
Thank you.
Of course. Any other questions? Or?
That's it.
All right.
Okay.
Really nice trees.
Hello, how you doing?
Pretty good. Good. This is Juniper. I don't like it in my yard.
It's grafted, I'm assuming?
It's grafted. It was grafted a long time. Yeah, right there, I think.
Oh, okay, it was approach
It used to
graft.
have 3 heads, and now I used to have 3 trunks. And
Gotcha.
No, I kind of don't know what to do with this tree.
Okay. So I was looking at this from the other side of the room, actually. I thought this side was kind of cool. I mean, I didn't see the other side, so that's part of it, but I think this side's kind of cool. I like the Deadwood going onto it.
Yeah, I kind of thought. I mean, I've gone back and forth with this tree.
I'd probably change the angle on it. You know, I'd have to look at this tree a little bit more. I think there's quite a few angles hiding in it, like maybe even something in this could work if you were to really push it up. But I think even just looking at it here, like a fun option, if you were to kind of do something in that angle, you know.
Yeah, so you like this?
Yeah. You know, a lot of people say you want to see the live vein, but even from here, you do see the live vein from this angle.
You do.
So if you were to, could you stick that wire like under the pot? A little bit. You want to use this? I think this is, yeah, if you can stick that on. Oh, let's not use a pot now. No, it's okay. I'm not going to use a pot. That's fine, I'll just keep my hand on it. So I basically do something like this, and then, you know, you can wire all these branches up. This is kind of coming forward, so it is a little difficult. But, let's see. So, if this wasn't coming so much forward, I'd really like to kind of use this branch and kind of follow these lines together almost.
Yeah.
So, you know, you do have the option, you could hollow that out in there slightly to bend it back, but I think that would just look kind of strange to have it twisted around in this area too much. It might be a little bit too tight of a bend.
I like the idea of standing it up, though.
Yeah, I definitely like that for the angle.
Yeah.
I think something like that would be interesting. It even kind of makes nice natural use of the branching. The next point to talk about would just be this. You know, ideally would be the branch coming from somewhere in this region and then kind of coming out into this place. You don't want that coming, yeah. So I think what you could do first and foremost, I'd stand it up when you repot it,
Got it.
and just kind of think about it for a while. And
You like
then,
the idea of maybe getting this up a little bit,
yeah,
get it off the deadwood.
yeah. So I would, you know, kind of try to wire it for the time being, at least. Wire this kind of back and back and then forward again. I think probably this branch is going to need to go in the future, but you could probably use this branch. If not, even if you know that's coming a little bit too forward for my taste, you could probably swing either this branch from here down and into this area, or you could swing this branch from the back down and into that area.
Lose those two eventually.
Yeah, and lose these two. But that would be my advice for now, somewhere in this angle. I think that'd be kind of interesting.
And then I'll, yeah, go looking at it a little different.
But there's quite a few kind of interesting angles in it. I think even from here is kind of fun. The hard part is the branching, like where
Yeah.
it seems like the branching was made much more for that side, or at least grafted with that intention. Even this is kind of cool over here, you know, if you want to see more of the live veins.
I
So,
think that originally it was kind of grafted
yeah.
to this side.
So I think if you were to like plant it kind of around somewhere like that, that could be kind of fun, you know. You could cut out some of this. Oh, sorry. Cut out some of this kind of stronger branching in here to compact that a little bit, and wire this kind of over towards the front, drop this down into here. So there's a lot of fun options for it, but I definitely, yeah, I wouldn't have it kind of kneeling over too much.
Yeah.
And then, yeah,
I think
just,
this is left over because that break.
Gotcha.
This is how it was left. So, cool.
yeah, I'd stand it up and either, you know, from that other side, but I think from over here, you get some nice movement. And a lot of, I like seeing a live vein.
Just coming right at you.
This branch?
Yeah. No, the dead.
That doesn't bother me too much. No, I think it's, you know, it's not coming right at you. It's kind of coming out and then back. Kind of has some nice movement. But I really like this in here. You have like the nice kind of bends in the Deadwood, and then also it looks really nice when the live vein kind of disappears from where it's emerging and then comes back on this side, and you see it over here as well. So it's got a lot of nice kind of dynamic, playful movement between like the dead and live parts. So yeah, one of those two angles would be my suggestion.
Thank you.
Sure. Hello, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
What is this, Itogawa?
Yeah, no, it's a Kishu.
Kishu? All right.
So what I did on this, I cut the top of the rock off. And then I dug the hole for the rock inside.
Oh, cool. What kind of stone is this? Is this like
It's
a...
lava rock.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it's pretty light. That's nice.
And then
Not that light.
I drilled it all the way through for drainage, and then I put the plant in.
Oh,
This was what was left over of a piece from an approach graft.
Yeah.
I had to do something with the rest of the
Yeah,
trees.
no, I hear you.
Put that together.
It's unique though. I like it. It's interesting. Where's, do you have kind of like a preferred front picked out on this?
Well, Bob was
Somewhere on
saying,
this side,
he's
kinda?
saying it kind of in this area, I usually kind of did it a little more this
Around
way.
here?
but, I do like it like that.
Yeah, I think I like it kind of somewhere. Is this fixated to the slab or?
Yeah, I haven't cut
Okay.
into the slab.
I see, gotcha. I like it kind of somewhere around here. Yeah, I think that would probably be my preference. You know, the hard part, I mean, it's kind of, you could have the flow kind of going either way. This branch kind of brings it back around, of course. One thing that I think might be kind of interesting, if you are using this front, the one downside, not really with the tree, but with the rock actually, is it's just kind of like a bit of like a...
Real plain.
Yeah, it's real plain, exactly. But the nice thing with this is the rock is very soft.
That's why I kind of went
Yeah.
a little bit more.
Well, what I was saying actually, or what I was kind of getting at was you might even be able to just carve this slightly.
Yeah.
So I think that would be kind of an interesting option would be,
I've
you
got all
know,
the toys for it. I think I carved this
yeah.
in there and I carved
So this kind of movement in here is quite nice. I like that. It kind of mimics the movement of the branches in the trunk and just looks a little bit more natural. So if you wanted to go through and kind of take off some of those areas, like just to kind of introduce this similar movement into here. So, you know, you have this kind of flat section, maybe take out a
that's
little
the way I
bit from here.
transport it. I just lay it on the
Oh yeah? Looks like you might need to invest in an upgrade one of these days.
Good idea.
I see. All right. So, I mean, if you like doing what you're doing, then nothing wrong with that. I think it's a pretty cool tree. It's definitely a
I've
little
never
bit...
seen anybody do something like that.
No, it's very unorthodox, but in a good way. I think it works. I'd be happy to have something like this in my collection. It's a cool tree. I really like it. The branching's nice and soft, you know, and very lush and just kind of,
Yeah, it's Kishu.
yeah.
It came out, they had 4-inch whips, and you know, when we cut it out, this is what was left over. And I
Gotcha.
did something with it.
Yeah, it looks really cool. I think in the one thing that might be kind of interesting would just be add in perhaps a little bit of Deadwood. I wouldn't do too much. Yeah, with a tree like this, it's so thin that you don't want to do too much. It could be kind of overkill if you do. But these kind of areas, like just open it up a little bit.
Yeah.
And here, maybe, I wouldn't even do like any sort of lines or anything. I think that'd look kind of cheesy. But just kind of what you got going on, just open that a little bit more. Maybe in here even, you know, maybe start something here and kind of run that out in the branch a little bit. And I think as the juniper ages, you know, they kind of tend to build like channels with live veins.
Yes.
So that'll kind of help add some interest into it. As you can see in here, you know, that looks kind of cool where that separates and these start to get a little bit thicker on both sides. So if you start to do that same thing like a little bit in the branches, not everywhere, but just kind of here and there, maybe one there, you know, maybe something like a little line down here, that'll kind of get similar, basically thickening on both sides, and that'll kind of add some really subtle interest to the tree. I think with something like this, you don't want anything too loud and kind of in your face.
It's not very, I mean, it's less than 10 years old. So.
Yeah, no, it looks very mature though. It's a very interesting tree. I wouldn't change too much with it, frankly. I like it. I think it's cool. If I were to critique one thing, maybe the trunk is a little parallel here. I think the ideal thing would maybe be slightly more downward or upward if you were to make something similar again. But even then, I just picked up on that now. I didn't really notice it when I first looked at the tree, and the foliage is kind of hiding that quite a bit. But yeah, I think it's a really cool tree. It's quite nice.
Okay, we take a little break. No. He can continue working. He can continue working if you want.
That's gonna go into my private theater.
Okay.
My nervous time.
Okay. Take a little break, and then where's Lily? Lily, where's Lily? Tickets for our raffle.
Okay.
Raise your hand. She's here. She was here. Well, Greg's here. Her assistant.
How many years ago was this?
We actually got, we were in Japan when they had no Korean and no Chinese visitors allowed.
Oh, it was right at COVID.
Right,
Oh,
we got
yeah.
home 3 days before shutdown.
That was a weird time.
We were like, there was nobody there. It was great.
Yeah, no, that was I had a lot of, it sounds bad to say that, and there were no tourists. So it's like, I remember I went to all those tourist spots. You know, the famous Chinese
Yeah.
Usually this was
Last
the
year,
table like
small town
Chinese dog
I guess good.
and it's got a is there something no rush, just whenever you
Trying to get through all the gates.
I just know the guy that
Oh, yeah. You know that museum that's outdoors that has, you look through the windows and you see it?
and I
There were
think
8 of us there. 8 of us there. When I look at the videos of the two, 8 of us, there's no extra people there.
I like it.
I don't know what I was thinking when I did it. I just, just did it.
But I love, you know, where's your table?
Cherry trees did a lot of air layers and go back to the
I just didn't want to, I didn't want to.
It's roasted.
Yeah.
Roasted meat.
We had those
It's your floating style.
I was traveling. I love that.
Yeah.
I told my wife, "Oh, you only need the water."
That goes in your brain.
She had it go down to check it.
This ash goes out all the time. It's so roasted. The design, just really, once you get these cathedrals, this
Broke off some of the branches, but
that's really nice.
it is what it is.
And it's dark enough where it doesn't stick out at you.
How many? 2 total. Oh, 10. About 9 years.
I wasn't going to show anybody until the show, but it's a shameless plug.
Make sure you say his lifespan when he's talking.
Oh, tighten it. Tighten it.
Never like.
Put my name on it. Shove it in.
Are we setting up again?
Yep.
Good to go?
Okay, good to go.
All right.
First of all, I took all the moss off. That's why this is dirt.
Okay. Where'd this one come from?
You know, I didn't know where I got most of all my trees. I got these trees 8 years ago.
Really?
I even asked Bob, I said, did I buy these from you? He said, no. But I've had this tree basically just sat there. And it was up on top. I got levels of my garden. And it just stayed on top, stayed on top. And 3 years ago, I went up there and thought, wait, what do I got there? And I had cut a bunch of that exposed stuff.
Do you know who John Booth is? John?
Pauline, yeah.
Yeah, so his son John, he had a nursery up in like the northwest, I forget the state exactly. He grew a lot of Shimpaku Bonsai. I think it might have came from him, but if you're not, do you remember where you bought it or no?
It's weird because I remember
have a lot of trees in the
all of my
backyard.
trees. Yeah, all of my trees, and you know what? I almost think I don't remember buying it. And I wonder if I could wrap it early on.
It's a pretty good tree for a wrap.
When I first bought it, it was nothing like this.
Right.
It was just a big shrub.
That's what I said.
I don't remember, but when I started, like most people just see all these raffles. But anyway, so it's kind of, it's just kind of stays. I have one very similar to that. That's one of my favorite trees.
Yeah.
I know. So this one kind of just always stayed in the background.
The nice thing on this, one thing I will compliment you on is like your maintenance of it is very good. The branching is nice and fine, which is very important because it gives you options. If the branches get too thick and too strong in certain areas, it's difficult to use those branches, but it's nice and fine and soft branching, but it's also nice and healthy, which is a good thing. You know, I think if you were to use this kind of angle, you would get a pretty typical, just kind of branch here, you can wire this down and out. I would cut some of this stuff, either bring it down, so it's kind of more in line with that, and you also get some nice kind of depth out of that, if you were to use the angle it's at now at least. And just, you know, kind of detail stuff out, bring this branch down into here for some separation, take stuff off the underside, and you know, maybe take some stuff from here and drop that down a little bit. Prune out.
So make this more of a bigger pad.
Yeah, big pad, but with lots of separation in it. You could even bring out some thick strong stuff and tips. So remove some stuff like that, push these together, and that would kind of help soften that line. If you wanted to keep it in this kind of form how it is now, and then as you're moving up the tree, you know, you got a lot of, again, branches in the middle, so maybe remove one of these from the middle, if not both of these. Because this stuff here, you got a lot of branching here, this is nice and fine, so cut out those thick ones and bring this stuff over into there, and that would kind of help continue having a nice soft branching. Yeah. Yeah, bring it up maybe just a little bit more in there. And here again, you have, this is kind of strong here in the middle. I might think about taking that out. It's a little bit strong, and just because you have so much branching there, you kind of want to make sure you...
Quite there yet.
Well, let's talk about options first. That's just what I'm saying for pruning if you're going to keep
So
it
this one right here.
Yeah, I think that would be a good one to... If you wire those branches, you want a little bit of time to get it.
So wire first.
Yeah. Wire and cut back at the same time. If you were to do something different, I'm trying to see... This is kind of a fun line in here with the trunk. The hard part is the branching is kind of difficult to use for it. I like this line. I think, you know, it creates kind of interesting movement with the trunk, having it go up first and then out that way. I think you could make a somewhat kind of like untraditional design with it from this angle and trunk line, but it's kind of difficult to detail that out. It's kind of hard to give advice on it because frankly, if I were to use maybe this trunk line, I'd kind of just figure it out as I'm wiring the tree almost, since it is a little bit untraditional. So I think if you wanted to just kind of keep it how it is, I'd go with my recommendation for now, just kind of cutting out.
Thin it out.
Yeah, thin it out, cut out some of those strong branches, you know, this stuff, you can cut this out here, and then kind of wire those down into that. You know, just do that for now, and then you can kind of think about other options.
So
in the
would this
future.
be like 2 different paths?
Yeah, I guess in this area, I think you could, all these you can kind of have some separation to a little bit, you know, like maybe you can kind of drop these down, add them into that area, that's a pad, this is kind of a pad, and then, you know, take off some of this stuff from the underside. Show a little bit of the branching on the underside, it shows some nice age, and then, you know, you have various kind of pad separation with that. In these areas, you get kind of boom, 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 and then you can pull even some of these guys a little bit more to the forward, put those in with that. And just kind of small, subtle changes, but it would kind of help
open it up.
Yeah, open it up, break it up a little bit, bring some flow into it. Definitely think about bringing that down just a little bit, maybe even guy wire it to this. I wouldn't, maybe not guy wire because that's going to bring it to the back, but maybe do it from under the fog or something like that. Bring it down a little bit.
So this comes forward.
Yeah, just a little bit. You could probably, you know, for example, wire from like this gen and around there. And don't wire it to be thick enough to bend this, but just thick enough to kind of bend this area. Just bring that a little bit more, just a little bit more forward, and then this you can kind of bring out, because you want to show, you want to kind of hide that, but you still want to show the trunk at the same time. So that could be an interesting option, I think. It's a cool tree though, definitely. It's a shame you don't remember where you got it from.
I know. I'm gonna go with the raffle. I think people will be like,
all right.
Yeah, sure. I bought it for $20. Nobody wanted it.
Yeah, that's, I'd probably go with that and just kind of remove some of that thick branching for now. Wire stuff out, you know, these guys. Cut back to that. And then here. Probably use most of this stuff for now. But definitely bring some of this down, create some pad separation, you know, this kind of being like a separate pad almost, this kind of being a separate pad, this separate, and, you know, just kind of break those up, basically.
So these, even though these are coming off different branches, these could be the same pad?
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, a lot of people think, like, for example, like, what branch is my apex? So really, the apex is built up of multiple branches, and a lot of times, you know, the branches in the bottom, they do come from different branches out here, but in reality, it all comes from the same branch. Okay. You know,
So when you did that, would you try to wire them to kind of come together like that, or
not
does it
too
matter
much.
like that?
I mean, you know, you kind of want them to have like harmonious movement. So maybe, you know, if this one's kind of going that way and that way, kind of follow that movement. And don't push them too close together, like something like that, because the foliage is going to fill out. And usually pads towards the bottom, you don't want them to be. If these are really small, and then this pad here is like bigger than that, sometimes it's kind of weird. So yeah, I would probably, you know, go through, do a detail wiring on it, and take out areas where there's too much branching maybe, remove some, and just kind of fan stuff around, and that would help break it up.
Is this a good time of year to do that kind of stuff, or can you do that in the summer? Or?
Yeah, this is a good time to do thinning on them, definitely. For wiring, it's okay if you're careful. The main thing you need to be careful about is the sap is flowing really heavily right now, so you can take that bark off really easily. So if you're not careful, you could, when you're putting a wire on, if it's kind of a heavier piece or something, you're not careful, you can just slide that bark right off. So it's okay to do if you're careful enough. If you're worried about that, you know, you can do the cutback and some thinning now, and then just wait till late summer, early fall, something like that. But I definitely like this trunk line in here. I think that's really interesting. I think if you're going to do that, you might even have to cut out like some of this, like this branch is kind of difficult to use for that trunk line.
Well, if you use this as the trunk line, does the first branch have to come from the trunk?
No, it doesn't.
This is from the top of the tree. So if this is the top, is the same on the same plane as the first branch.
So that's the thing. Definitely with Juniper, a lot of the time too, it looks interesting when you take branches from the top and kind of bring them down towards the bottom. A lot of the old, like maybe you've seen when you go to Japan, a lot of the old like Yamagori trees, they'll have something that comes maybe way from the top of the tree down, and it'll have gin inside of it, and all this nice deadwood, and it'll drop down to be the first branch. So that can be kind of interesting. You know, this could kind of have something like that going on if you were to drop it down almost into there. And, you know, it's kind of difficult to give like exact advice on it. It would be kind of a big change, so I don't want to.
About 45.
45 angle. Oh yeah, something around there. I think that'd be kind of interesting. You don't want this like stark straight. Something kind of in the middle there. And then I think, you know, if you were to do that, maybe you could kind of wire these down into that space and have some of them kind of grow out. So don't do too much pruning on the ones that would take up that space. And maybe keep like a branch like that for now. Maybe in the future you can think about getting rid of this if you were to do it with this angle, but keep it for the time being. And then
So like take this branch off.
or you know, make it smaller even, make gin out of that and use those. That could be a thing. Or, you know, if I were to do this angle, I'd probably eventually get rid of that and grow most of the foliage we want in this area from this area. Kind of grow it
Get rid of what, this branch?
Yes.
Okay.
If you were to use this angle. And then, you know, grow out the foliage from this side, wire it into that area. You definitely need to go with a pretty different design, but it's a fun option for the future. So I'd say, you know, kind of make the tree with this for now, and then you can change it to have that angle in the future.
All right. Thank you.
Sure. Pleasure. Hello, how you doing? Good, because we got here some tacos. 2 grams. All right. You grabbing these? Yeah. Nice. Okay. Cool. So we got a little show
I
here.
didn't know if I wanted to make that shorter, it goes up to the tree, but I thought the way it wrapped around the Deadwood, I thought that's sort of a cool idea to keep. But I haven't thinned it out for a while, so
Gotcha. So, if you wanted to make the tree quite a bit smaller, you want to, okay, all right.
So is it too tall? There's too much up here?
I mean, I think if you could get it in this line and kind of have this gin sticking out, that'd be kind of cool. So I think one option would be, you know, for the time being, I think you could gin all of this actually. So if you were to make a gin out of that, basically you have this branching here, so you can wire that up into that area, and that would kind of become like your apex. It looked kind of sparse for a while, but if you were to do that, that would kind of compact the tree, and then you could maybe cut.
Bring all these in a little bit?
Yeah, a little bit tighter, so you would get some gin out of this basically, and then.
Now my other question is the front, because another front. Possible.
It's kind of a quirky little tree. I think that I would probably pick the front that has the Deadwood in it. That would be my choice. But yeah, if you wanted to make it smaller, I no doubt you could make it. I wouldn't cut it all off. Make a gin out of it, you know. And for the time being, keep it kind of short. Like cut it into kind of these areas. All the branches into those areas. You know, the ones lower on, cut them around. Keep as much, yeah. And then you can always reduce that later on if you want to. So I think that'd be kind of fun. It would, but
And then you're saying make this come up the back and that would come back
yes.
forward and become the
And if you wanted to get rid of that kind of straight angle there, you could even wire from the gin. You know, you could wire the gin to put some movement into it as well if you want to do that. But you could wire this branch and kind of push that a little bit more, this whole main branch, a little bit more up first. Yeah, so it's not so kind of like straight out. And then that would kind of give it a little bit more natural line for this being the apex. So you kind of push that up a little bit, and then you can make the apex out of this smaller branch here. So if you were to do that, I wouldn't do too much to this for the year. Just kind of let it grow out and fill out. And then maybe reduce these a little bit more too. Like you have, this branch is kind of strong, you can cut that out and wire these guys kind of into here, and that would help compact it and make like a much smaller tree.
So if I was going to take this off, would I do it now, do it later in the year? Do it gradually?
I think it'd be fine to do now personally. The only risk I would see would be maybe you get like some juvenile foliage, so that would be kind of a drawback. What you could do would be gin all of the side branches for now and gin the majority of this stuff. So let's say you're to take off kind of like to here, keep some foliage at the top. So what that would do is get light into here so you can start remaking it from this, but not doing any drastic enough cutback to cause like juvenile. So you'd still be bringing in energy. Exactly. So you could, you know, gin the side branches and then start to make it from that basically. I think it'd be kind of cool if you wanted to, you know, really make it a small tree, and I think that would make this gin a lot more dramatic, you know. So that would
Make it lower than, make the apex lower than the
yes, yes. Generally speaking, when we have like a gen, we kind of want to see it something like this at least. Kind of if it's sticking out from the top of the tree, it's kind of cool to see. It's nice, nice factor that kind of ties everything in together. So that would probably be my advice if you wanted to make it smaller. I mean, if you didn't want to make it smaller, then let's see. I'd probably cut it back to that maybe smaller tree. I think. I mean, you can honestly. There's nothing wrong with just wiring these pads out, bring it down a little bit. Yeah, I think if you were to compact it and really kind of, let's say your tree something in that size, this being kind of your first branch, this cutting that back and making something really small, I think that would be kind of fun. That'd be a cool tree. Seeing that Deadwood sticking out would be a nice addition to it, I think. Is this also yours? Okay, cool. Did you graft this one as well? How long ago did you graft this?
Between 15 and 20 years ago.
Wow, nice. Did you do like scion grafting on it?
Yeah, scion grafting onto San Jose.
Oh, okay, so you just grafted right on the trunk and regrew from that? Cool.
One graft, one tree.
Gotcha. So I kind of like this trunk line. It kind of has like a nice kind of leading movement where you have this curve in the trunk and then that leads into this branch. And I think if you were to kind of, you might even want to put some raffia around here because it could probably split from here. But wire this kind of down. And yeah, so wire it with like a little, not super thick, but some wire around the branch and then maybe guy wire it down into that area. So you kind of have sort of that movement, kind of matching this movement in the trunk. And
that's always bothered me because if it sits the way it does, it sort of goes up and down.
But I think
it takes away that hump.
So I think if you were to kind of drive that down, though, it would help take away from that. And then if it still does bother you, you could cover that with bringing this foliage down a little bit in the future. And if I were to use this kind of angle, I think I'd probably want to cut some stuff out of here. This sits a little bit tall as it is. So maybe cut this out or make a gen out of it.
And then
bring this guy kind of a little bit up and a little bit forward, and little by little kind of push the apex to be around here. So now it's kind of sticking out. Yeah. So now it's kind of sticking out here, but if you before it's not.
Until that starts to go up.
Yeah.
Down, so.
I'd keep it for the time being, but you could probably get rid of it. It's difficult. You don't have.
Could I get rid of that and bring this down?
Yeah, you could, but you still kind of have quite a bit of not much branching in that area, but it's not really adding much having it. I'd keep it for now, but you could probably get rid of it.
Could this fill?
Okay, gotcha.
Could this fill out back into that?
Yeah, you could do that definitely, but for the time being, I just worry about cut this back and basically wiring these up and filling out the apex, and that you can kind of think about later. But I like this. I like this. I like this angle for the.
This is gonna go on YouTube.
The first time my fingers are very much.
You're welcome.
I'm sure it won't be the last.
Oh, excuse me.
Oh, sorry.
All right, cool.
This is an office tree.
Oh wow, got some history to it. Nice.
And he gave this to my friend Maribel. She's not in great shape, and so
That's very
it wasn't. Yeah,
Oh, it is?
yeah. This is black on canary
Grafted
island,
Canary Island.
and John had two of those.
I'll take a picture of this.
Yeah, and so he gave it to Maribel. I'm guessing it was about 40 years ago. And she's not well and such, and it was very weak, leggy, with poor color.
Looks like it's starting to get nice and strong now.
I inherited it a year and a half ago. So I put it in a much bigger pot, whacking it back and feeding it.
So, I
And
mean,
it desperately needs.
yeah, the main work it needs right now, it's starting to get nice and healthy, is wiring and cutback.
Yeah.
So, you know, if you're confident in doing that work by yourself, you could do it. So, I would basically, you know, you're fanning out a lot of these branches and you're thinking about what sticks out of the silhouette. So obviously like these ones here do. So basically as you're fanning it out, cut those back and then, you know, you might not even, you could probably cut that branch completely, fan that stuff out. I would try and raise this up a little bit from here. So do some thick wire around there and kind of trying to get it not down here so much, but down this level.
See, this thing here, I just left it here because there was teeny nothingness, and it's like, let's get some strength before I back that back. So some of this stuff, yeah, there's, and especially at the top, there's a lot more work of thinning and issues.
I mean, you could probably just cut these back into period. This is kind of strong in the middle. These kind of branches, a lot of the time, you know, you think like, oh, this is strong, so I need to cut it back to here. But most of the time with those kind of branches, you need to cut it back to here. You cut it back to here, this is going to get to the same situation as that. So it's better to just kind of nick it from the source and, you know, cut it back to that, wire these two out, and that'll fill out to the point where you don't even think about it.
Health is more important, and it was so leggy, I really whacked it back a lot.
I think I would probably, you might need to put some raffia on it, but you don't typically want these kind of branches crossing the trunk. It's funny because it's a very Japanese kind of reasoning for that. They say it's like, you know, samurai, they used to cut their stomachs and they're in battle if they got caught, and they don't like that motion, that kind of movement with the bonsai. But I would try and bring that branch kind of more this way, and you know, wire that down, kind of have it hugging this trunk and close the movement off to the side. But yeah, basically just wiring it down and getting the branches at a nice angle. You could probably cut out some stuff like this. Yeah, I wouldn't cut this back all the way to here because
it's not enough.
Yeah, but you know, let's say you have these two. Yeah, incremental. Cut out this thick stuff from the top.
Yeah, and you've got too much stuff, too small.
Yeah, so
lots to choose from.
Were there any other areas in particular you kind of had questions about?
No.
You sure? Okay.
I actually studied with them.
Oh, cool.
For a year, so we did a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Yes.
No, it's just, this one. The big thing is that it was maybe weak, and it's just my job has been getting healthy.
It looks like it's starting to get pretty healthy. I think it's time for a.
It's time.
It's time. You can do it.
And I can. And it's easy.
Yeah.
So, you know, I have a number of opportunities.
Cool.
Takes a while.
That is a nice tree. I'd be happy to have something like this in my collection.
Well, you're a young tree.
Yes.
The older I get, the smaller I like. I actually carried this from the car. But I wish I would.
Well, take my business card. I would be happy to have a legacy tree like that in the future of my collection. Oh, cool. All right.
The legacy trees have been collections for somebody
Keep me in the loop. I definitely like to find out.
except for the little ones.
Yeah, I hear you.
You can have big ones, but you can hear it.
All right. Well,
Well, thank you very much.
of course. I think it's a very cool tree. I'm sure it'll turn into something nice.
There she is.
This is your tree?
Yeah.
Japanese black pine?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Do you have like a front that you like on this tree picked up around here? Okay. I think that's probably a good front. Yeah, I would. I'd pull it kind of somewhere around that angle and maybe up and kind of, not down, but get it at an angle where this branch becomes more visible as a side branch. So you kind of have that line going on. You've got quite a few branches in here. So I'd probably remove this one here. It's kind of going a little bit too up and then out. And if you remove that one, in the future you can drop this down and use that as kind of like a side branch. It's okay, you know, when you're doing kind of like a more Bong-jeene style tree, having something like that from the back come to the front is okay. It's a little strange. it's a little strange for more stereotypical designs, but it works well for Bong-jeene trees. So you could cut that and then have that branch kind of come back around, and it'd be a much better angle than if you were to try and use that one. Yeah, I think that's about all I do for now, you know, just to kind of bring that up. You could probably put a piece of wire on that to do that. You might bring it a little bit too much that way. I'd like to kind of do more upwards like that. So I'd probably put some wire on it and just wire it to the end. Probably even, I think this would be kind of nice for the angle, just to give it a little bit more height too. So do that and bring it up. You know, not too much, but just a little bit. That'd be kind of a nice angle. Right now, this is kind of going back. Give it, and also kind of, you can see there's kind of some umbrous taper there, so if you do that, kind of raise it up a little bit. So that would be my advice for taking. Yeah. So those, I definitely would not handle those areas this year. I think these buds might even just kind of be dead, actually. No, they're not dead completely, but yeah, I wouldn't handle these areas this year. The color's not perfect. I think it might be kind of like a pH issue. I guess the pines typically like things a little bit more acidic, so around kind of like 7.5 area. Yeah, that's kind of the color you're looking for in pines typically. So I know the water down in Southern California is notorious for being not so good. And you know, a lot of people like to do like the RO systems, like reverse osmosis systems. That can be a little complicated and expensive, and there's a lot of wastewater. But one thing you can do to combat that is at least trying to correct your pH, which you can do correcting the water itself, but in a kind of pinch fix sort of situation, you can get the soil acidifiers, like hydrangeas and stuff, and that you can mix it in with your fertilizer, put it on the soil, and that will help at least for. It's not a permanent fix, but it will help a little bit in that situation. But first and foremost, just check your pH and see what it is.
Okay, yeah, because it's waiting for it to green up. You know, I repotted it last year. It's not really darkened up at all. I thought maybe it was going to flip into a orange.
Yeah, I just check the pH for now. Kind of aim for like a 7.
Try.
Then the more I look at it, those two almost look at the same level. Then someone else pointed to me, from this angle, the roots and the trunk actually look better than this.
It's kind of coming right at you.
Right. So either should I cut this whole thing off, make a small jib, or just push the path way back?
Yeah, all right. So I do kind of like from this side what it's got going on. You know, these branches right here are kind of interesting, and this one as well. Kind of.
Will you use this angle? Okay.
Yeah, if you're gonna use this angle, but you do have a lot of branches kind of coming off in the same spot, which is cool. This could be used definitely if you were to bring it down and kind of have that as like a leading branch. So then you just have all these branches kind of coming from the similar spots. Another thing, I like it from YouTube, but the hard part is the trunk is very thin. Yeah, that's kind of something you don't want. So that, probably leading back to somewhere around here. This area, and then maybe raise it up just a little bit because it's kind of leaning back. If you look at it from the side, you can see so maybe just a little bit, not much.
Drop down the branches.
I would probably I would definitely drop it down. I would definitely drop this down quite a bit, and then I'd reduce this quite a bit. Maybe whatever's the strongest kind of in these areas, remove that. And then as far as these branches, I would probably remove this one. Okay. Yeah, I like The ideal thing would be if this size branch was right here. That would be the nicest. This is a little thick, but I probably make a gen out of this because if you're kind of, you know, using this side and you're dropping this down because you want the movement to kind of going that way, and if you have a branch down there, it looks kind of strange. So I think I'd use something in this area, make a gen out of this, drop this down into here, and then kind of bring this down really hard into almost like this, kind of hugging the trunk a little bit. And you could probably put like some little shoddy lines like in here, maybe widen this a bit. Yeah, I think for now I just start out small, and then little by little you that'd be my advice. Probably this. Okay.
2 years ago, I was just a break. And I ended up taking this as the apex and
Yes. Okay.
You're hired.
Anyways, so you killed this off how long ago? A year ago? All right. So
I thought about moving it down, but for whatever reason I didn't do that. So.
yeah, well the nice thing is this is likely alive here because you got this callus here. One thing you got to worry about when you're killing off like branches this big, sometimes it can be better to do almost like two-step process, or just kind of like you know, reduce the majority of it, because with junipers you kind of have to trick the live into staying alive sometimes. Sometimes if you know, maybe the top half isn't that strong and you kill off something like this, it can also cause all of this to die back at the same time. You have callus here, so that tells me that this is likely still alive, which is a good thing. Okay.
So this is his first.
So another thing, just kind of looking at it from repotting in the future, I try and center this a little bit more in the center of the pot, not too much in the back. That can cause kind of issues aesthetically, and then also if you're talking about the health of the pot, let's say you have a lot of the live part of the tree in the back here, which, you know, you do have some strong roots. It shows me that this is the kind of stronger parts of the tree. So when they're kind of squished against the back of the pot, they don't have much room to create roots, which is not a good thing. So that can cause weakness in certain areas. So don't try and fix that today or tomorrow or this year even, but when you're repotting in the future, a year, 2 years from now, whenever it is, just center it. And you know, when you're looking at it, like I was telling some of the other members, when you're talking about the front of the tree, look at the side because it's just supporting. Do you have any like particular questions about it? Or?
No, I mean just like when you think about this is sort of like this is the first I took the wires off this year. This is sort of what I've done. And I'm open to all kinds of suggestions.
Okay.
Anything from drastic restyles to how people can say this branch needs to come down, anything you can see to make it work.
I'd probably bring this kind of, it's kind of coming towards you a little bit too much, but I'd probably bring it down and also kind of back. So maybe just guy wire it from here. Make sure it's not going to rip away from this too much. That's all preferably. So do that. And then I'd probably like to see some Deadwood put into here. You know, first off, widen these areas a little bit in here. Maybe create like a small little streak, not directly under the branch, but something around here. Just little ones for the time being, and then you can widen those in the future. It's a little bit tall. I think you probably don't need this sun going on up there. You could probably make it from most of the foliage around here. You could make a gen out of from this area up for the time being. I wouldn't cut that now because it is a little bit unhealthy. Let it fill out first. You want like these areas to look more like this, and even then some. Don't scissor prune it. Yeah.
This was something that another bonsai teacher told me to do. It's a little more old school.
I probably wouldn't go back to it. So yeah, that's. If a gardener did that in Japan, they'd get called stupid, basically. So to see it on a bonsai is a little sad, but yeah. So I would not do that, and then basically just try. As the tree grows, you want to cut it back once it gets healthy, but you want to do that from like cutting back to segments. So let's say you get something strong growing in here, you can cut this whole thing back into there. It is kind of like an old school logic, but it's not a good thing to do. The tree will, it might not die, but you're never going to get the health that you need to do what you want. So avoid doing that. Let the whole tree get healthy, fill out, and then you can cut it back, and you'll get to where you want to be much quicker than if you don't.
And so eventually, once it's healthy, this thing all
Yeah. The apex would kind of be a combination of all the branches in this area, and you might get more back budding, and that could change in the future. But something kind of, you know, more here, not because you got to realize these are going to grow. Your apex is not going to be here. As it starts to grow, it might be more like here. So, you know, and same being said for here, if you come back to this area, right now it's around here, but it's going to grow out to be around here. So kind of this shape, if that makes sense.
Based on that, do you think this is too
I think there's some stuff that's a little too strong. You'll probably cut back in the future, but seeing as it is kind of unhealthy, I wouldn't worry about that too much now. If you're kind of bringing it back, that makes it a little bit more usable, so you can bring it back and then kind of maybe cut out some of this stuff in the future, let that grow out and kind of swing it forward a bit. But yeah, right now I just kind of worry about getting it healthy, yeah, and then you'll have a lot more options to do it in the future. Okay. Thank you. Sure. This is your tree?
Yeah.
What is this?
Cryptomeria.
Oh, it's a Cryptomeria. Nice. You don't see a lot of those down here, do you?
You're the only guy that got that. Everybody else in the room.
Well, Lindsay knew it. I love Cryptomeria. They're a fantastic tree. I think more people should be growing them in the States. You can make a really nice tree. I have one. It was a little seedling that another apprentice at the nursery I started at, we actually just took out of a park pretty much, and it's about this thick, and he's grown a tree in the past 4.5 years. It's about like this thick now. It's got all kind of primary branches around it. He's starting to build like nice ramification, and he's made that tree in less than like 4 years.
They're fast.
They're very fast, and they start to look old really fast too. Like you can get nice bark like this on them pretty quickly. They get lots of really interesting stuff going on with the roots, where they'll kind of get like Deadwood, and they're awesome. Yeah, this is a cool tree. So what are you doing for pruning on this?
For the last couple of years, I've just been letting it grow.
Yeah.
I wanted to thicken up the branches and the trunk.
So usually, like in Japan, we'll prune these kind of around end of May, mid-June-ish. If they're a little weaker, maybe towards the end of June. That would be the general thing. One thing you can, so do you have, can I use these scissors here?
Go ahead.
So I don't want to cut too much because it's not really, I'd like it to flush out more before you cut it, but just to show you. So when you're cutting them, you don't want to cut straight across like that. You want to take the scissors and kind of like when you're doing like decandling work, it's a little difficult to show here.
In between the needles.
Yeah, but basically in between the needles, just kind of open up a little bit and then basically make that cut. You don't even have to go through the whole segment of it, just a little bit. And that will avoid browning, but even if you do still get some, what you can do is you can put it in the shade for about a week or so after you prune it and just mist it a lot. So if you mist it with cold water, either from a spray bottle or from your hose if it has a mist setting on it, that's going to reduce the browning on the needles a lot. We don't really have that many Cryptomeria at the nursery that I study at now, but when I first got there we did, and what we do is actually we put it inside in this kind of storage room we have with big windows in the shade, or we put it under like a bamboo shade cloth system we had. And it would get misted like every 30 minutes by one of the apprentices.
Cool greenhouse?
Yes. Something like that, yeah. Shade house, basically. You don't want humidity. Even you don't need humidity, you just need it to be misted. And a little bit of shade. Not too much high temps would be best. As far as what to do with this tree, do you want to come over on this side so you can kind of take a look? So, another difficult thing about Cryptomeria is they're notorious for not liking being watered. They tend to drop branches like you know it. So that is a difficult thing. I've seen some where it's like, I've seen some where a branch got wired like this and it just died. So you got to be really careful with it. I prefer to use a lot of guy wiring and then kind of wiring more these branches. So I think something like this, I'd probably try and guy wire it just a little bit. Even if you kind of have that kind of movement that isn't typically ideal in other species, I think with this I just let it be. You're not going to do like saw cuts and try and get that sort of movement out of it.
My big problem is it's like a cedar. You wire it,
Yeah.
take the wire off, and it springs right back up.
Yeah. The best thing you can do is try to build most of the structure via scissor cutting and not rely on wire too much.
That's what I've been doing.
Yeah. I mean, I would just. Have you cut this tree this year at all? Or?
No.
Okay.
Well, I did a little bit of cleanup
Gotcha.
today, but that was it.
So, when's the last time you repotted it?
A few years ago.
Okay. What kind of soil mix are you using?
This is just regular potting soil.
Ah, okay. So that I would try and get it into a bonsai mix. These are definitely one of the species that, if you're gonna haul out the money for like akadama, I'd use like an akadama-based mix. I think that would really make a difference as far as the health and the vigor of it. They naturally grow in akadama in Japan. So like the hinoki and the Cryptomeria, they kind of grow hand in hand in the same locations, and they'll grow in that kind of mixture of akadama and volcanic soil with a little bit of like river sand, which is basically granite soil, kind of all mixed together. And if you can mimic those native situations that they come from, basically, you'll get a much healthier tree, and I think you'll kind of get better growth and results from doing that. So if you haven't repotted in a few years, I'd repot it, you know, next spring and try and get it out of this soil. Maybe do like a sectional bare root, like take away corners or even a half of the tree to try and get it away. If you're worried about the health, you could just do corners, like maybe this section, and next year that, or not next year, but next time you repot, move your way around the tree. But I definitely try and get it into an akadama-based soil, because they are one of the species that are really going to benefit from that. And if you're gonna do one in your collection, I'd pick this one. And then a lot of the stuff, you know, you can wire like these kind of guys in the future just to kind of spread stuff out. But another thing you can do too, like for example, you kind of want to get this branch to be more like this shape, right? Yeah. So you can prune this stuff in this area, and then don't prune this stuff here. So basically let that grow out, and then just don't cut that back at all that year, and then you can cut it back to next year. And then, you know, let's say you want the branch, the pad to be out to here eventually, so you'll let it grow out, and then maybe when you do that cut back the following year, you'll cut it back to 50% or 30% of that, so you can start to kind of create some ramification for that. Because if you just grow it out and then cut it back to exactly where you want it, it's going to start to bud out and build ramification. It's going to want to get too big. So cut this stuff in this area, and then maybe a little bit from here, and that'll kind of promote these side branches in this area here to grow out, and that'll help make the pad without doing too much wire. And that kind of design system will be much more easy to take care of, basically, and you won't have to worry about wiring stuff and then springing back when you take the wire off. So I would just try and promote those kind of side growth in these areas here. And you know, you can do light wirings like I was saying once it gets growing out. Just even if you're not, you know, going in between the needles and stuff, just kind of lightly wrapping it and then just doing that and then letting it grow out, and that will kind of help make the pads, basically. Is there anything else you have questions about?
No.
Okay.
Did you very much pinching with?
No. So what we'll do, does anyone have like a chopstick perhaps? Yeah. Okay. So we'll do all the pruning with scissors and tweezers, and basically we'll pinch them, or not pinch them, we'll take them with our tweezers and then cut kind of like you would the tosho, like a needle juniper, back to silhouette. And another thing we'll do is we'll take a chopstick, and this works for other species as well. We'll do it with needle juniper, and you can basically unweave it. So sometimes you'll get branches that grow back into it. So you'll take the chopstick, and you can go throughout the tree and just kind of push it out. And when you have like a really dense tree, you'll get some of those. Sometimes you'll get growth like that that's just going inside the tree and kind of spiraling itself around. So you can use the chopstick to kind of tweeze that growth when you do have a really dense tree, and that'll help to get everything going out for you.
Did everybody get their tickets in the bucket?
Thank you.
Welcome.
Yeah, it's in the bucket. I'm gonna go ahead and start calling since we're getting towards 9. All right, first name up. Sonda.
Sorry.
Cut it down enough. Nice. So this is 2 years in the making. Okay. And he did take and we did a whip graft. So it's coming around, rotated around. You'll see.
Oh, I see the graft from right here.
Yeah.
This branch.
There's one.
Gotcha.
That's it. Yeah. Rotate it.
Okay. That's it.
You'll see the here it is. This one here.
Oh yeah, I see what you're saying.
Okay. And putting it in to get a branch in this location.
Okay. How long ago did you guys do that?
What'd you do?
Spring. All right.
Right before it cut it out.
Front's on this side?
Yep, right
Imagine?
there.
Okay.
That's cool. Exactly right. So I was gonna push it back to 2, but instead of wait till you.
Yeah, I mean, I'd push it back to 2, and I'd go even further in some of these areas, and probably cut these back to, you know, like into these areas here, and just kind of like really push it back. Oh, I think it's a little thick.
Yeah.
So I'd go ahead and just like cut those back into those areas even. Yeah, this stuff, this is going, it depends though, like do you want to grow this branch thicker? Being the first branch, it wouldn't hurt to, thicken that a bit more. I would probably even think about doing some sort of like wedge cut to kind of get that angle. I'd like it a little. Personally, for me, with these kind of trees, I think with the cork bark elms like this, they look nice when they have kind of downward branching. It just kind of matches the bark and stuff. So I think if you could, do some wedge cuts maybe here and here to kind of get that angle.
Oh, really?
Not
Don't
down
just pull
like
it down
that.
from like you pull them down from the side.
Yeah.
So you want it a little more on the curvy side?
Actually, no, I kind of want it more of like a slightly sharp angle. I don't want, a lot of times when you just use a guy wire, you'll get kind of like that rainbow shape almost.
Okay.
So I kind of just want to avoid that. So I might think about, doing just some small wedge cuts, like really, really small ones.
Just on one side?
Yeah, just on one side, probably on the bottom there, just to kind of bring that down and get kind of.
It's a good time of year to do that.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Well, when? Yeah, you want to do it while the tree's active more so.
Okay.
When you're doing cutback, basically.
Okay.
I'd say around now would be a good time. I wouldn't do it too early because I think that might.
How far into the branch? 30 away?
30%, something like that. 20%.
Do you do several of them?
It depends on the branch in particular, but I think something like this you could probably do maybe kind of around here and then around here, and basically start with.
You would come about half inch out or 3/4?
I would come about 20% of the branch, if that's maybe around like here.
Right there where the thickness is?
Yeah, kind of around there. As far as like cutting through the.
And go through about 30.
Yeah, I'd stop it about here. Like
About there?
Yeah, about there. And if you're, those really nice kind of fine, like saws they have for bonsai sometimes. If
Yeah,
you ever
yeah,
seen, like,
real
really
fine
tiny
teeth?
ones.
Real tiny fine teeth ones?
Yes,
Yeah, I have one.
exactly.
So
So
use
use
that?
those, and you can kind of get that angle
So
just a little
you
bit.
just cut it straight on the main. So here's the branch.
cut a wedge.
Just the bottom of the branch right here. So
You don't even want to cut, like, basically what I like to do with it is you can cut it with the saw and then basically clean it up with a grafting knife. And that slicing with the grafting knife will kind of create the wedge.
Oh, okay.
If you create the wedge with the saw, usually it'll be almost too much.
Okay.
Yeah. So you could do that here, and it's going to be at a slight angle coming from the perspective of the soil level, but it'll be straight on with the branch, basically.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Okay, yeah.
So you could do one kind of here, see how that goes, and then if you need to do another one, maybe around here, and then just take some cut paste, like
Yeah, you're right. I got this.
liquid cut paste or putty, either would work fine.
So then cut it and then pull it down.
Yeah.
So you don't wrap it?
For the wedge cuts, usually no. It's kind of, think of, as long as you're guy wiring it down, you're going to put it right next to each other, and then you seal with cut paste, so it's not really necessary.
Okay. We're using this as a second.
You could put the buddy tape around it if you wanted to, but I don't think so. Like the grafting tape, the stretchy one. Yeah.
We're using this as a sacrifice branch.
Yeah.
So if we cut that.
Bob, look excited.
Is that the graft here?
No, that's not the graft. That's the one we cut and then through. Well, yeah, I guess you could call it a graft.
Yeah, it's a graft. Yeah, you don't need to cut that. Oh, I see.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's coming off that branch. So if we do that, won't that slow the nutrients from going?
Well, the other problem is it's going to move this graft around. It's going to disturb that. So, sorry, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, I just noticed it too. Yeah, I just said, okay.
Yeah, wait until the graft.
Wait, okay, okay, yeah, okay. So we can do it later. It'll,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Graft takes priority now.
Okay.
Another thing you could do too is you could even graft onto here to change that angle. That would be another option. So if you wanted to take,
Another one?
if you wanted to take another branch from around the tree,
Yeah.
and then basically you could kind of graft it in at that angle. You don't want to do it on the top because that's going to be kind of a weird angle, but you could do it kind of like side and bottom, so something like that. Not 100% the side, not 100% the bottom, kind of between the two. And if you were to do it right there, that would essentially make that angle without doing the wedge cut. So that would be another technique. You could just do like an approach graft. So you take a saw cut and then just cut about, you know, maybe
and just
something.
put it right
In that groove. You clean it up with the grafting knife.
Yeah, both of them.
And then when you're doing this, you also want to just slightly shave it, a little bit on the side, something like that. Drop it in there, and you can either use the like a, how do you say it?
Tape?
No, not the tape. I'm losing my words now for a second. Pen, like a pen, like what you use to hang up a poster.
Oh, a
And
pin.
just put that, post pen, exactly. Put that. You can hammer it in with a little carpentry hammer. Put like one on each side. You know, one here, one there. One would be on this side, one would be on that side. That would hold it in place, and then you can put cut base there. Or if you wanted to, you can use the grafting, like the tape you use to tie it.
Yeah.
Not the stretchy one, not the budding tape.
Right.
but
The black one. The black one.
Yeah, the black one or the clear one, whichever one
Right,
you
okay.
use to secure the graft. And that would be a good option to kind of change that angle too. But you could also grow this more upward side. So that's, you know, just kind of depends on your taste. Either is a good option.
Well, that's what these are, experimental trees. That's what Kevin and I have been working on, trying to get ideas.
Probably the easiest thing to do, Joe, would be to let that ground tape.
Yeah. So next year we can do it.
And then bring it down.
I think it would look fine to have the branching growing up too, though. I think that's like not a bad option at all. So it just depends on what kind of tree you want to make. That would be a little bit more kind of elegant looking tree if you were to bring the branches. And I'm not talking super down, but just slightly. That would make a little bit stronger tree. If you're going to keep this thickness on the trunk, of course it's going to thicken a little bit no matter what.
Right.
But if you're not really going to blow it out and not thicken it too much more than this, I think that would work well with a more upward branch structure. And if you are going to, you know, let's say you thicken it to like this size or something over the years, I think that would work better with a slightly more downward branch structure, and it would kind of play into each other aesthetically.
Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions?
Yeah, it's alright.
I should have been spinning these around a little bit.
No, you're good. I was talking about Bob. Bob's doing this.
I wonder why. All that driving, huh?
Yeah.
It's not competitive, Bob. It's not competitive. Put it down.
Oh, come on.
You left your sweatshirt
I
here?
was ready. What's this pot?
That's mine. Oh, the pot's for Jim Barrett.
No, it's not. This is Japanese.
Okay.
Japanese.
No, Jim Barrett.
No, it's not.
No,
It has a signature.
that's his signature.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, sure.
This is Jim Barrett pot.
Get in there.
All right.
There we go.
Had it custom made. Had that custom made
He's not here, so I gotta take pictures.
before he injured himself.
Let's see here. Turn it around. Upside down. Yeah, it says Juniper. Is that his signature? Yeah, he has a chop. Okay, all right.
He has a chop. Also,
What time's it? Get over
What?
it.
Whatever. I don't care.
he actually put a date on it.
Yeah, that's what I remember seeing. I've mainly just seen the ones with the date and his name. That's what he did before, right? Okay.
Bob's face.
All right. All right, how about we give him a great big hand? Thank you. I hope that was beneficial for everybody to get a good estimate on your tree and what to do, and I hope you take his advice. Thank you.
Thank you.